Hello, everybody. Ryan Haley here, and welcome back to another edition of the Running Real Estate Podcast. Today, we've got a two-time guest, somebody that's joining us here after the beginning of last season, and somebody I'm excited to have on here for a number of different reasons. First off, I want to kind of get a quick history as to his evolution in the real estate world, but then I'm also excited to have him on here because, as many of us know, in 2023, the 2023 real estate year was a challenging year. We saw high real estate prices. We saw affordability squeezed. We saw the total number of transactions in the United States be at its lowest level since the 90s. But this gentleman to my right here not only survived 2023, he actually thrived and took his career to a new level kind of by changing his business model a little bit. So I am excited to hear all about this, excited to have and welcome and introduce you all to Philip Knight, who is one of our is the seasoned real estate agent with the company right now. So welcome, Philip.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's good to get you on here. I always like bringing somebody on who can kind of, with the name Running Real Estate, somebody that is in it every single day and can share the experience that you're having, not just from an agent side, but then how you're helping your clients. So excited to kind of get into that a little bit.
Okay.
So where did this all start? Maybe give the
as
folks
far as last year or in general?
Just in general. Let's go back to the beginning of
so I guess about 5 years in real estate total. Got into it I was in sales before. Also musician through town. So a lot of connections locally.
Right.
It actually happened. One of my friends just randomly one day said, "You should be a realtor." And you'd be good at it.
Yeah.
And it kind of, switch flicked, if you will, and pursued it. Found out it was something that not only I could do, but was good at. Mm-hmm. Understood it through the process of buying my own home and kind of learned the ins and outs of the sales process and decided, okay, I can go and represent folks like myself. That's like when I first got into it, was like, let's go help these first-time home buyers get property, because I was once a first-time home buyer dealing with the same affordability issues that are kind of happening now.
Right.
So that's what I get the most joy out of. Now, obviously, the business has excelled into selling all kinds of properties and, from top dollar all the way down to a mobile in the area, entry level first time home buyer. And honestly, the joy is almost the same. It's like you just want that person to achieve what their goal is,
right?
And if it doesn't happen for me, I think part of my success is I'm that if it's a squeaky wheel, I gotta get it, or it keeps me up at night. A little bit detrimental at times, but most of the time I think it fuels that mentality that we got to get the job done, no matter what it doesn't matter what the environment is. People are going to still need to buy and sell real estate. So I think that's kind of what happened with this past year. Things were tight, but I said, I'm going to sink into my sphere of influence, the people that I know, the past clients, and really just let them know I'm your advisor. I'm not here to just, go unlock a door and flick a light on for you. I want to help you achieve your real estate goals and set you up for success in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing there is, and that is truly the key that I have found, with the most successful real estate agents. Obviously they work hard, they're going fast, they're moving all the time, but really what drives them and what they can't lose sight of is the consumer's goal, right? Like you said regardless of the fact if they're trying to buy their first home, or this is a second home, or we were just talking off camera here a few minutes ago, expanding your career into like land development and new construction and residential building lots and what that looks like. Regardless of what it is, what the product is, you mentioned, yet you've always tried to be goal focused for the client. What is their goal and how can we help them achieve it?
Absolutely.
And that's if that's what you're following as your North Star, you're going to have great success.
Yeah, I mean that's our duty is to our clients, and I think sometimes some people might forget that, and it's you're just go like you said. When you take a step back and really dive into your past clients, which I did in 2023, then you realize, okay, you're going to provide value, and people are just going to call you. It wasn't like I was on the phone cold calling people. It was I provided value and was referred to other business.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's probably an evolution a little bit. As an agent, you could be super well connected, right, in the town, and a lot of people, but you still have to establish yourself as the expert in the real estate world.
Sure.
Right? They might know you like you.
Oh, yeah, I know Phil, but how do I know you know what you're talking about in this realm?
Right.
Right.
And you need to be able to acquire that knowledge and then show that knowledge off. Figure out which way you can kind of demonstrate it. Right.
It's you walk a thin line because you never want to be salesy. But, it's kind of like finding the right moments to bring up, hey, just so you know, I'm a, expert in that field, global real estate advisor.
Yeah.
Not here to sell you on it, but just want you to know, and I think that mentality has also helped me lately. Like you said, it's, you get to a certain point of your career, first time or your first clients start to call you back because they're going to buy a new home or sell the current home that they're in. So I think it's a little bit of that, and my wife being the czar of keeping me. She basically points me in the direction and says, "Go here today," and that's tremendous because when you have an agent trying to juggle all the hats, it becomes a very daunting ordeal. So to have her able to kind of say, hey, here's your past clients, I got them, this is so-and-so's anniversary this week, you want to give them a call. I don't necessarily have to be constantly on that, looking at my, past client database. She's doing that, and it frees me up to go meet clients, meet new, clients, meet potential sellers, and tour real estate.
Yep. So just to give the listeners some context here, with Phil, Phil came on after being on another team, for a period of time, joined us right about the time that we opened up as Atlantic Shores. We rebranded as Atlantic Shores Sotheby's International Realty. So that's going on 4 years ago now. Phil joined us then, and I think like a lot of maybe newer agents to the business in the beginning, you have great interpersonal skills. You can sell, but you need people to sell to.
Absolutely.
Right. And in the beginning, you really took advantage of like some of the company provided opportunities through leads and our relationships with some of the portals that we have. And you were able to really take those people, run with them, give great service. And then now a couple years later, they're coming back to you because you did give such great service. And you've gotten to the point where and this is what I wanted to mention early on. The reason Phil had such great success, I think, in 2023 was that he totally transitioned the business. It went from being kind of dependent on opportunities to being independent and growing that sphere. So, that's really where I see you've just kind of shifted your business, which has been phenomenal.
That's the good word. The shift, because we knew the shift was coming. So when you are aware of these things, you can prep. And, there's nothing wrong with picking up the phone and saying, where do you want to meet? But I didn't see that as my future business.
Right.
I want folks, recommending me to other folks because they had such a good experience. But yeah, early on, it's pick up the phone. Where do you need me to go? I'm there. But if I were to just do that and then hang up and sell them the property and never call them again, that's not a business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that paired with the, knowledge that you have to be in their lives, and you have to be their realtor and their advisor for life. And that's kind of what for my life anyway. And what I say to clients is, it doesn't end today. When we're leaving that settlement table, I said, the relationship isn't over. when you need me, call me, even if it's just to ask a question on something. You're not going to owe me any money for our future relationship. And then down the road, if it's something that they need to, have some real estate advice, I'm always there.
Right. So you've transitioned this into a true business. I mean, it's what it sounds like. And I, we were talking earlier too, just talking about different techniques, different ideas, how we've got some buyers, but we need to find some sellers that could match up, with them well. And how do you do that? Right. And so tell me a little bit about how you're not just working in the business, you're working on the business too. Are you setting some time aside, or do you have a scheduled day, or how does it look?
Try to have a scheduled day, but as sometimes that schedule goes right out the window if you need to roll up your sleeves and get into some nitty gritty offer stuff, negotiations or something like that. But yeah, working on the business is the best advice I could give to somebody who's coming into their being a new agent, is have your systems dialed in, have your and we've always talked about it, don't just have your database in a computer, have it up on a wall that you can see. I have actually added a little book that I keep, I got to call him, and I'll just write it down rather than keeping it on my email, keeping it on my phone. For me, it's if I write it down, it clicks.
Right.
So, you develop little systems, and everybody's different. I've dialed in pretty much a work week for myself, because that's one thing in real estate. There's no set schedule. Mm-hmm. So I've realized, okay, this time works good for me doing this, and everybody's different. So I think if you're able to do that, it's going to set you apart from the agents that are just waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, or to just pick up the phone and go.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. No, absolutely. I mean, I've struggled with this for years. I mean, where it's like, I'll go in these phases where I'm like, I'm going to be militant about my schedule. I'm going to do this from this to this to this, and I'm going to get it all in, right? But you have to take that with a grain of salt in real estate, because you are going to have these I guess you could call them fires, or circumstances that pop up that need your attention throughout the day. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to divert a little bit.
Right.
So I've kind of transitioned mine to having just bigger blocks. Like, my ideal day looks like this, and I'll try to hit that block as opposed to the minute, because then I just set myself up for disappointment.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of like, I'll get to that in the afternoon.
Right.
And it's on my list, but I can't say it's going to be done at 1:05. That's because your phone rings and it's somebody who you have under contract, so you're going to take that phone call. It just happened to me this morning. Nothing bad, it was just talking somebody through some things they didn't understand, but that conversation took 45 minutes. I'm always there, and I'm happy to do that, but then it kind of, the next stuff, it's like domino effect for the rest of the day.
Yeah, you're chasing, getting back after it, trying to get back on track. Mm-hmm. So with that, when you're giving advice to a new agent that wants to transition, or that maybe they're in that spot where they do have some opportunities, but they're struggling to see the value in long-term follow-up. Like, how it's very easy to, as an agent, every day wake up and remember the 5 transactions, 10 transactions you've got going on, and thinking your checklist, I got to do these things, and I got to show property on Monday. But it's difficult sometimes, or maybe not the highest priority, to make sure you're following up with your people. What kind of systems have you put in to ensure you are going to touch them, so when the time is right, that they reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. There's several. So one is Tara, my wife. Mm-hmm. She keeps me on. The anniversary is huge. Birthdays. Right. So if you can get, their birthday, and no one's ever going to be upset that you are sending them a birthday email. So some of the new agents might be like, oh, that's a little bit too much, too personal. No, get their birthday, send them a birthday email. There's so many times, we talk about the 8x8 campaigns and things like that. There's so many touches you can do through the year by just not being salesy, or being, just saying, hey, I'm still here, and here's some value.
Right.
I just sent out a curb appeal email yesterday to all my potential seller clients. And it wasn't something I just grabbed off the internet. I actually wrote the curb appeal for this area that I feel, because curb appeal in New York City isn't curb appeal in Ocean City.
Yeah.
Some things that I see like that could help, stuff like that. So email is good. And then, a quarterly phone call. If it's somebody that you talk to, we all have our people that we like to rap with, and we know, oh, this phone conversation is going to be a good convo. So we'll call those guys and keep in touch. And some people don't like the phone conversation, and you just send them an email. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm here if you need me. There's a little bit of value.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So with that too, and you going back to what you said earlier, it got my ears perked up a little bit, is because you said you don't want to be salesy. Right. When you know lots of people, but how do you have the conversation that, hey, I am here for you in real estate? And one thing that I think you've done pretty well that I've noticed from afar is you're creating content, right? You have a cadence of reaching out to people, but in a way that it kind of attracts some of the business. Like, you don't necessarily have to go chase it down by pounding the phones every single day.
That's the name of the game.
It's kind of coming to you based on the fact you're putting things out there, not directly to them, but it's out in the universe.
Sure.
And they're seeing it.
If you can do that, that's the best. Cold calling, you'll bang your head against the wall trying to, but it still
works.
It still works, and it's still necessary. But if that's all you got going for, I want it all. I want all avenues covered. So I think that's like a little bit of if you not create, but just through my success. And it's not like, hey, look at me. It's, hey, this is what I've achieved, and you could do the same.
Right.
Just 2 days ago, I just told you, I had a client that actually, like, I gave them advice on how to win in a multiple offer situation. They took that advice. We wrote the offer, and we won. That's like, oh man, that's gold for me. Somebody actually listening, putting that offer through, and then it winning in a multiple offer situation in a really hot community. So I don't know my point to that. Sorry, but basically it's more than just picking up the phone. You have to keep in touch with your clients, and I set reminders in my phone. So that's one thing that I do. I'll go on that date.
Yep.
And, I need to check in with this person. I'll literally put it on my calendar as a reminder. It dings me in the morning. That and Tara reminded me about the anniversaries and birthdays and things of that nature. And luckily, I have somebody that does that for me. Mm-hmm. Most agents aren't going to have that. So if you could automate it, maybe that would be great. Sometimes the automation for me seems a little bit less ingenuous, so I like just calling them. Right.
I mean, there's certainly systems in place that you can use calendars, obviously Google Suites, calendar, the CRMs that we provide. You can put notes in there. But I guess one thing that we used to do, and we do from time to time, and I think is really good, is like, how are you getting this information? What information do you want to know from the client in the beginning, so then you can follow up with them in the future? Do you have any kind of intake form or anything you've played around with? Or?
No, but I see the value in them.
Yeah.
And every day is school day for me. So if it's something that I'm like, I need to add that, it goes on my little list of my master list, not my
doing and done, right?
Yes.
That's a do in the future.
Yes, implementing, and this is one of the things, like getting a checklist when you're talking to this client for the first time,
right?
And you don't necessarily have to go into their whole family history, but I like learning something that they like to do, and maybe it's a common thing. So the next time we talk, it's not necessarily real estate. It's, how'd you like that hike, or how were the waves the other day? That kind of thing. And I think that goes a long way as far as not being the salesman. We're in sales. I don't deny that, but I want to show you my value. And if you want that value, give me a call.
All right. So many different ways you can do a sales business, right? And I think the way that that most of us prefer is to really be able to work with folks who know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's typically more on the referral based. Successful client that is happy with the service, that's then referring friends over to you.
Oh, the job's almost all done at that point. There's no convincing.
Right.
Aunt so and so told me you were good, so I trust them. Now I trust you.
Right.
That's the best way to build this business.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And showing up every day helps too, right? Just
Yeah.
consistency, right?
Yeah. And don't shut the phone off. There's some days where you want to get done at 5 p.m., but some days are going to take you into 8 o'clock at night. And if you're struggling to get your business going, you're going to have to take those 8 o'clock at night phone calls, or put out some fires, if you will, at 8 o'clock at night.
And I think that's season based too. I mean, not necessarily in the season of the spring market or the fall market, but the season of the economy, season of number of transactions, seasons of where are interest rates. There could be times where, you know what, you might be doing a little bit more. You might be working 7 days, right? And I think kind of we're in that marketplace a little bit where, one of the ways to set yourself apart from other agents is not just having great marketing, great follow-up, multiple pillars of ways to attract clients, but also some grit too, and it's that kind of season where you got to be a little gritty. What's that?
Be available.
Right.
And it's if you're doing business, it's tough to be available for everybody.
Yep.
So maybe add an assistant. Luckily, I have Tara. I don't have to necessarily pay her a salary.
I don't know if you guys are working as a team. I mean, that all comes into the same pot, which is good.
That's kind of what I lean on as well when I talk to clients. I'm like, look, you get us as a pair. And she's great at marketing. She's great at networking. She knows way more people than I do in this area. And I think, us as a pair, it's like you don't have one agent trying to juggle too many things.
Yeah. Well, we've said that for years as a team. It's if you're trying to be everything to everyone, you're not going to be very successful. But when you have a team and you can rely on the team to support you, that's going to allow you to help more people and or focus on that person a little bit better, as opposed to being concerned that you're not doing something that you should be because you're spending too much time on that phone call.
Taking something away from one to give to the other. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So you've done a great job transitioning, and it's I think you're getting ready to have that exponential growth, even though you've had a super successful year when a lot of other folks just struggled. I mean, we know some folks that have had big years in the past, and then 2023 smacked them in the face, and they're scratching their head thinking, well, what do we do? For you, it just seemed like you were able just to stay consistent and have a really strong year.
I mean, it kind of, we went through it a little bit in 2020 when the pandemic started, and we were all thinking what's going to happen, and all right, we better sink into our systems.
Right.
And that's kind of what I did for 2023, and it just worked out. I was surprised to see numbers down as much as they were because I didn't feel that. I think there's no magic way it happened, but grit was one of them. And just having the right systems in place, and just understanding the market.
Yeah,
we knew it was coming. We talked about it many times. So you get prepared.
So let's talk about the market. You're out there every day. You're talking to clients every day. What are we seeing? Where is the market right now?
In Ocean City, or just
whatever way
you want to. It's the tale of two cities, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have Delaware Delaware beaches compared to Maryland beaches, right, in the surrounding areas. 33% more inventory in Ocean City than there was at this time last year. That number could be slightly different. I looked at it maybe 2 days ago. So a little bit more to play with as far as inventory wise.
Yeah.
I really feel like we're at the beginning phase. So just this morning, watching the Today Show, having coffee, what's the Today Show talking? Rates dropping, median price point dropping. So buyers' ears are going to start to perk up. So I think we're in a little bit of a sweet spot now, and we're still, we're selling real estate. There's more real estate out there. The buyers are starting to come back in. And I think we're on the beginning of a very busy 2024 and a very busy spring. And once that rate, it's like I said, it's on the national news this morning. They're talking about the rate coming down and the prices coming down. Well, then you have the general consensus thinking, okay, the rates are coming down and the prices are coming down. Maybe I need to jump back in. And if that all happens at the same time, what's going to happen. The buyer competition would raise the prices. So I'm on the horn to all my buyers saying if 2024 is your year, right now you really got to be in this market.
Yeah.
Because as soon as, I like your phrase, the suntan lotion, like the scent is in the air, people are going to start buying real estate.
Yeah.
And there's going to be multiple offers. And then, to talk about Delaware, I just was in a multiple offer situation. 5 offers on the property. We ended up winning. But it goes to show, yes, a Delaware beach property still is going to likely have multiple offer situations depending on what area it's in. Ocean City, there's a little bit more real estate to play with. And, there's actually some good properties on the market. I was just going through it before the podcast with somebody. Some good Ocean City condos for sale that you wouldn't even have had the chance to buy 2 years ago. So if you look at it that way, now's the time. Come into the market, get your place. If it's the rate that you're worried about, a lot of people are hedging that they're going to continue to come down. So maybe an adjustable rate is the way you want to do it. There's tons of products out there. Tons of ways to skin the cat, as they say. But I think right now is pretty exciting, and I've definitely seen a little bit more business pick up than there was at this time last year.
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head with the business piece. I mean, I was listening to a podcast this morning that was talking about some of the national numbers, and for the month of September or the month of December, number of transactions were up 8%. Year over year, so we've already seen an 8% bump. That's kind of continued on,
and that was simply because they said, "Oh, look, the rates came down," and we had that bump, and then they slightly went up a little bit in January, and now they've started to tick back down. So,
yeah, it's. I also think you're spot on when it comes to this calm before the storm type of atmosphere, where I think that there are some properties that are maybe they sat a little longer, and this goes back to like pre-pandemic world. People would always ask me like, when, what are the patterns with beach real estate? When do you get the busiest? Is it the spring market? Is it the fall market? And I would always say, well, we sell real estate year round. There just could be different times of the year where we might see less appreciation, where prices aren't going up as much. And what used to happen was the suntan piece. You get into the fall, right? And in September and October at the beach here, we got great weather. And you still smell a little bit of that suntan lotion, right? And then the rental season's kind of over. The sellers finally say, all right, we're going to put the property on the market. And a lot of times people make the mistake of pricing that property when it comes on based on an August, September price, right? When the suntan lotion was really there.
Right.
And then now you listed it. It's the end of October. Now you get into November, the suntan lotion's gone, right? And people are getting ready for the holidays a little bit. And so it's very possible that you could see some of these properties that were slightly overpriced in the fall have sat through the winter, and now they've been on the market 60 days. And that seller is saying, you know what? I want to get this thing sold. So as a buyer, it might be that time to get in there and get a sneaker deal.
Absolutely.
Before the masses come in.
It's going to happen. And, even if you're talking about moving to Delaware and relocating to, there's a ton of new builds in Delaware. And the new builds are offering incentives for paying cash or using their lender, whatever it is. Those incentives are going to fall by the wayside as soon as that rate gets better. So if you look at it that way, it might be a kind of take the money and run type situation right now.
Yeah.
Pay cash or use their lender, refinance out of that rate. We could go all day talking about strategies, but work with somebody who's knowledgeable in this market.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think also work with somebody who is considering investing, like work with an agent that is investing and or is actively working on investing in real estate. There's if they're not doing it themselves, I don't know how they can guide anybody.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I really don't. I mean, you and I, we're always talking about investment opportunities. Where can we buy? What can we do? Is it rental property? Is it land? I mean, I think that there's a lot of people who don't keep their finger on the pulse of the market, and that just does a disservice to the client when the client's going to them and trusting in them that they're going to get great advice. Mm-hmm. But that's another story.
Right.
That's a topic for another day. I mean,
it's a new podcast.
Right.
Next week.
Yeah, next week we'll add that in. All right. So, I mean, it sounds like things are looking up for 2024. I heard on a podcast this morning that a lot of the portals, NAR, Zillow, are making upward revisions to their price appreciation that they're expecting for 2024. Well. Mm-hmm. They were originally saying, in my prediction was like 0 to 1%. I was thinking single digit.
They said 4 now.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. A lot of them are thinking that we're going to continue to see prices increase and appreciate here through 2024 for sure, at maybe a higher clip than we originally thought. Mm-hmm. So all the more reason, if you can find something earlier, it's probably a better time to do it.
Absolutely. A lot of pent-up demand. A lot of people that sat on the sidelines just waiting, and that rate just drops a little bit, and they're tired of waiting. Spring's coming.
Right.
Life is short by the beach house.
There you go. No, I agree with that. It's I think we have that in our office in the conference room there. Okay, so just to transition one more time, we talked about your history. We talked about how you've successfully pivoted and changed your strategy. You obviously know the market very well. What would you say to help our clients and somebody thinking about buying or selling? What's the biggest obstacle or unknown? What question do you get asked the most from your clients right now?
That's a loaded question.
I know.
Because it would depend on where we're buying.
Okay.
If
this is a buyer.
If it's Ocean City, okay, for the buyer.
Yeah.
For the seller, it's obviously going to be different. The seller, they're wondering, is this the pinnacle? Is this the time to sell before, or the price is going to continue to rise? Should I hang on to this property? Should I rent it out? So those are always the questions. And there's no right answer. The only thing I can do is provide all the information to them and help them make the most informed decision.
Right.
On the buyer side, it's, work with somebody who really knows and lives the market would be first. Mm-hmm. Because, if I'm using my cousin, he just got his real estate license and he lives in Annapolis, but we're buying in Ocean City. Sorry, that's
a challenge.
It's going to be challenging. And with Ocean City is the House bill passing in Maryland. And what does that do to affect our bottom line? And, are the condo fees going to rise? Is the insurance going to, rise because of the condo fees? And so there's a lot of questions, and basically you just have to be a student of the market and know what you're dealing with when it comes to, in Ocean City, we know every building basically like the back of our hand. So pretty much we kind of know what the client's getting into anyway.
Right.
And then we just double down by obviously getting the condo docs and reading through them with the client. So, I mean, the hang-up's still the affordability a little bit for, your people that aren't necessarily investors. Mm-hmm. You have somebody that just wants the second home. I want to be in Ocean City. It's still a little tight for them. But there's different options out there for them to make, lessen the blow. They could maybe take some equity out of their property or their primary.
Right.
So sorry, I'm going off on a tangent.
No, it's good.
Those are the questions I get often. The big one in Ocean City is the condo fee. And because of the House bill passing that they have to do the 5-year reserve study each 5 years, is that affecting some of the fees in town? Absolutely. Which buildings are being affected? That's, basically you learn that as you're going into it. If you're touring it, we're going to know what's happening with that building prior to even going there most of the time. And then we double down by reading the condo docs.
Right. I will say that I think it has made it more challenging. Phil's referring here to the House Bill 107, which is a House bill in the state of Maryland that came out 2 years ago. It was passed, and then the actual kind of start date on some of this stuff kicked in here back in 23. But requiring all condo associations, homeowners associations, and cooperatives to have a reserve study done every 5 years to make sure that they've got reserves to be able to maintain the building. All components of the building, whether it's a roof, siding, parking lots. I mean, they have to have a plan in place to fully fund it. Yeah,
everything.
The structure, right, to fully fund it. And so with that, a lot of associations in Ocean City didn't have it, so they had to go out and get it for the first time. They're learning about it. They're trying to wrap their head around, what do they need to do. And the other piece too is if it was the first time a reserve study was done, it has to be funded within 3 years.
Right.
So that means they got to come up with some money. They got to figure out where they're going to come up with this money to do these items. But I'll say, as a listing agent, as a buyer's agent, it does make it a little difficult because it's in flux right now. There's some moving parts.
Sure.
So you might call the listing agent, on behalf of your buyer to try to find out the information, and they might not have concrete information because it's still coming in, right? But ultimately, I think the role of the agent is to dig in to try to find as much as you can
Absolutely.
to help your client.
Go after those minutes in the meeting, see what they're talking about in the meetings. Don't just rely on those condo docs, because in 2 months things could change. It's a condo association, so learn what the people are talking about. And honestly, if it's more in season, I talk to the neighbors. And I get all the lowdown on the neighborhood, the building. I've sold more real estate by talking to a neighbor than probably any other, technique.
Right.
You find somebody, hey, how do you like the development? How do you like the building? Well, let me tell you, and if they like it, your buyers are sold. I thought of something on the seller side, a question.
Yeah.
The tax assessment.
Okay.
That's, I've got a few phone calls because the tax assessments have gone up in Maryland, and we were discussing this 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And the same thing, there's a lot of moving parts. How do you answer it? The assessments have gone up. Is it going to be the same mill rate? How does it look? So these are things that you need somebody boots on ground who's going to be able to roll up their sleeves and actually find this information out, because nobody knows. Nobody seems to know anything. So work with somebody who's actually going to go to work and find it,
Right. And the whole goal with that is we want our clients to make a good informed decision that they're comfortable with at the end of the day. I mean, there's always going to be things that come up.
Yeah. I mean the question was, do I owe this much in taxes? Right. No, because they're still figuring out how that's going to be paid, and if it's a different rate, the tax is being paid.
Yep.
So, we were able to answer that question as good as we could. But, if you call a lot of other agents that I know well, they would be like, what? So.
Well, if you don't own in Ocean City, you didn't get a tax bill. So you might not know unless your clients called you. Right. So.
And goes back to the investing practice that you preach. Yeah.
Right.
I know what you're dealing with because I'm dealing with it as well, that kind of situation.
It wasn't a tax bill, but the new assessment. All us property owners in Ocean City got our nice assessment notice that came up. But what about insurance? The podcast I just did last week, we talked about these 3 topics. But I wanted to ask you as an agent, and something that I'm thinking about a little bit to help your clients, with insurance costs rising throughout the entire country. Not just limited to coastal areas. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about putting any provisions, or what are your thoughts on like having a provision in a contract that allows or it's almost like a contingency for the buyer to ensure that they approve the insurance deductibles or the insurance premiums
for the master policy?
Well, I'm thinking more of like a single family home here.
Oh, gotcha.
Right,
okay.
Buyer's buying a single family home. Say it's on the water, but it's in an area that they get a lot of wind and hail, and there's an increased chance of being on the water. They need flood insurance. with these premiums increasing, one thing I'm thinking about is just like, maybe sometimes to protect the client, there should be a clause in there that says that it's like a 10-day feasibility study to ensure that they can obtain insurance for the property within a premium range that's acceptable to the buyer.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea because that is something people are struggling with now. And not so much for me on the, we bought the property, because basically we're getting that insurance dialed in pretty quickly.
Right.
But I've had a lot of sellers from years past call me, Phil, who do I call for insurance? Ours has skyrocketed. So for me, I've kept a list of insurance providers that have always done good things for my clients.
Right.
And that's my first, I'll connect them. Hey, did you talk with this guy? Maybe he can give you a different rate. I'm not an insurance agent, so I don't know much about it. That's kind of the way I leave it with them. And but as far as putting a clause in, I think that's great because right now you don't know that could send you your affordability into the dumps, basically. Right. Learning that it costs $6,000 because you're on the water, that kind of thing.
Right. I got one right now up in Delaware where the person's been there 40 years and they've had flood insurance. Never had a claim. Never had a claim at all. 6 feet above, the I guess above sea level or the mean high tide, whatever it is. Never had a claim. But I mean, honestly, it's a single family home. Their annual flood insurance is like $350. And if somebody knew how to go out and get that flood insurance, I guarantee it's going to be significantly higher. Now, flood is transferable. You can typically transfer that.
You get the elevation certificate. And, if they're grandfathered in, but so again, it's not my forte, but one of the sellers that reached out, they were grandfathered in and they still found a way to raise it. It was something different with the flood insurance. Oh, it's the same, but it's different.
Right.
Things that I don't necessarily comprehend because my brain's on
real estate.
Yeah. So I rely on somebody that first off, have somebody that knows their stuff. Just like your stuff with the real estate market, have an equally knowledgeable insurance agent, not just 123 insurance online, or whatever it is. And that's I have a guy that I call and I pick his brain. And then if he doesn't know it, I have another, local agent that is in Ocean Pines and I'll run stuff by them. But I think that would be a great idea for clients because that's another layer of protection. And that's our main job is protect our clients.
Right. I just find it always seems like it's a last minute type thing. And if we could get out ahead of it, it might be actually allow our clients to have better experience. It's like one of the first things you should do is contact an insurance company because I think a lot of times if you're getting a loan, the lender is recommending, hey, don't forget you're going to need insurance.
Right.
But it's still kind of last minute. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think it's good to get it out.
Now you're right.
Earlier.
I've had folks that I have to. We're at the going to the walkthrough. Oh, I didn't.
Yeah,
it's time.
Right.
But so very early on, I connect them with somebody who I like and trust and know, and 9 times out of 10 they end up using that guy because he just gets better rates. It seems than the masses. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's all my service providers that I recommend to clients. It's like, if you've done good stuff for me, I'm going to recommend you to them. Mm-hmm. The minute that you don't give me a call back or something like that, you're out of my Rolodex. And that's another service provided to the clients that, I always tell people, you're not out on an island here. That's a big fear. To go back on what do buyers, what's their fear? Not knowing
the
anyone.
Unknown.
Yeah. Coming to this area and I don't know, contractor, I hear horror stories. You can't get things done on the Eastern Shore. Yeah, you can. You just got to know the right people. It's just like anywhere else in the world. And for me, I've kind of built that portfolio of people that I trust in every, whether it's property management, cleaners, contractors, plumbers, electricians. You kind of have that whole quiver of folks to offer your clients, and the insurance agent falls right into that category.
Absolutely. And with staying on the same lines of insurance here, one thing I know that Phil does really well is you're always offering to your clients to keep them up to date as to where their real estate value is, right? Their home value. But one of the benefits to what you do in offering them, kind of an equity review, an equity check, a home value is, over the course of the last few years here, home values have gone up so much. And I wonder a lot of times if our clients are properly insured.
Yeah, absolutely. And we send out the real estate review, and that's the first sentence on the letter is, this isn't necessarily for, hey, you got all this money, let's sell your property. It's, hey, you might want to check. And this is something that I had to do in my personal, when we bought our house, it was worth half of what it is now. Right. If something were to happen, I'm not getting my return from that house. So, it's an important thing. And that's something that, I don't think any other brokerage in this area recommends to review for your insurance purposes,
right?
Protecting yourself. So I think that's really good. And it just shows, hey, here's another piece of our value. And that goes out yearly. But obviously, if any client needed an equity check, I'd do it any day of the week.
Right.
I came across somebody who, we looked on Zillow, and this is, and not to take anything away from the online models, but they are taking data and just meshing it all together. They're not considering, this one's in the cul-de-sac and it's looking out at the pond, and things like the view factors aren't there. They might take a comp that is a different type of home. For instance, in the Overlook, this is where the place was.
Yeah.
Really nice community in Delaware, and it's a townhouse, and they were taking comps from the single family home section. A townhouse in there is between 500 and 600. A single family home is between 900 to close to 2 million. So Zillow's grabbing those and including them as comps for a townhouse in that community. Meanwhile, if you look on the true comps, between 500 and 600 across the board. So Zillow had it at 8 something. So it's just an example of it being dramatically wrong.
Right.
So don't trust, these online companies for that kind of stuff. They're great to go on and browse and flip through. I do it.
Yep.
Flip through and, but if you're looking for facts and advice that is usable knowledge for that local market, local realtor, somebody that does good business in the area.
Right. No, I think that's huge. And I think it really goes back to kind of how you started the podcast, and an element of two things. And that's, the service piece, being able to serve and guide based on the client's goals, right?
Yeah.
First and foremost, I'm sure that's what you're probably trying to figure out first is what's your goal, right?
Absolutely.
And then regardless of if it's, wanting to know where they stand for value, to make sure they're insured, to buying, an entry-level property, to buying and selling, multi-million-dollar homes. You just got to figure out the goal, and then and you can adjust to work to help, meet that goal. So,
and if they're, stoked on something, I'm stoked on that as well, no matter the price point. Mm-hmm. It's it's great when you sell a $3 million compared to a $300,000. Mm-hmm. But the feeling is the same for me, and that's God honest truth. And I'll get almost a better feeling out of helping somebody that was once in my shoes, first time home buyer, struggling with the affordability of this area. But the best thing I did was buy real estate, because now that real estate has skyrocketed in value, and lucky me, right?
Right.
And you don't necessarily want to just keep waiting and renting property, even if that affordability is not there. It'll be a temporary thing. And I think it's always better to own.
So what's the interest rate on renting? Right.
Exactly.
Right. 100%. Right. 100% interest. Uh-huh. Everything is going to the landlord. Uh-huh. When you buy real estate, you're locking in your price. You're locking in your rate. You're locking in your payment, and it's going into your pocket. I had this conversation with Gabby, my second oldest, yesterday, and she was talking about where she might want to live, and maybe she'll start off renting for a while. We were actually driving. We went we drove all of Ocean City yesterday, and we're thinking about where we wanted to eat. And the girls couldn't make a decision; they didn't know where they wanted to go. So we ended up in Ocean View, the Ocean View Brewing Company, right? Uh-huh. Went up there, and then on the way back, we drove through all these communities in Delaware. And Gabby's saying, "Well, what about that house? How much is that worth? And what about that community?" And ultimately, she's like, I think maybe I'll go someplace and I'll rent for a while, and before I actually get into a house. And I said, "Well, you don't want to do that. You want to buy, right?" And so we went through the whole equity piece, and she didn't quite understand what's equity, right? And how do you put a certain amount down, and now if that goes up, now that's your equity. It's yours, right? It's yours. You locked in what you owe, but anything on top of it, when the price goes up, it's yours. Mm-hmm. So then it was an interesting conversation to have, and I think I struggled to explain it to my own daughter more than I do to a consumer sometimes. But
well, she's young. And
I
don't think I would understand equity at that age. What you bought it for versus what it's worth,
right?
And I always tell clients, you will never sleep better than when you have whatever you have in equity it's in your bank,
right?
Basically, if you wanted to tap that, it's there. If if things got very hectic in life, that's there. Mm-hmm. It definitely changed me from my point of view as far as owning a home and then learning about the value in that home, and not just like, oh, I have a place to live. No, it's you have a forced bank account. Mm-hmm. Even if you're not good with money, which I'm not, and you're not good at saving money, which I'm not. Luckily, I have Tara, but it forces you to save money, and it's the best investment you could do.
Well, at the same time, it went up in value, and then you look at your increase in net worth. I mean, it's huge, huge. That's the interesting piece. I mean, right now we've got more equity in homes than ever before, ever in history. I mean, it actually does put our country, the homeowners, in a good position, financially. Sure. Mm-hmm. So,
and take that equity and go buy another property, and take that equity and go buy another. Right. And, I have friends that are my age now. I'm getting this phone call a lot. Is this how you become wealthy? Is this what you do? You buy property and then you rent that property and then you buy another one? Absolutely. Right. That's how you become wealthy. Fastest path to wealth, buying real estate.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you really track how much homes have gone up over the course of like the last 30, 40 years, it's not huge spikes. I mean, if you just tracked it on the line, it's never gone down.
Right.
I mean, even with the blip of the Great Recession, I mean, that's all evened out. It doesn't go down.
It was like, I think I looked it up not too long ago.
Over enough time, that is. Does go down.
Right. There's stages where it goes down, but for this area, I think it was only, I could be misquoting, but it was like from 1950 to today, there was only maybe 4 or 5 years where property did not appreciate in value. Right. And it's like, okay, that's a pretty good solid investment. 4 years,
those odds,
1950 to today.
Betting odds.
Yeah,
right?
I take that over anything in the stock market. Any investment out there. So anyway, we're getting off a tangent.
We are. We're going down a different road here. I like it. It's a little more off the cuff. It's not your straight formal podcast. I always enjoy getting your perspective because I know how you are on the streets every day. You're talking to clients every day. It's great to see you do a fair amount in Delaware, which is always interesting to hear that perspective. Because I do Delaware, but I'm not a resident of Delaware like you are. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right on the border, but
right.
There is, it's completely different. So some days I'll put my Delaware hat on and I have to know that I'm in Delaware, and there's ground rent and there's things that some people don't understand. Mm-hmm. Not as much beach property.
Yep.
That's the main question I get is what's the difference between the two? And Ocean City has a lot more boxes of air.
Affordability.
Yeah. The affordability is there. You can get in. I was just sent a place, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a deeded boat slip in the 3s. So if you were to take that and put it in Delaware, it'd be in the 8s, easy. So there's the difference. There's lower taxes in Delaware, but the affordability is
right. Get a little piece of that pie closer to the beach, for a much more affordable price. And that's what I keep saying. Yeah, I mean, in Ocean City, yes. To put a bow on that, to wrap that up, but even with our home values appreciating or the tax assessments going up 47.7% in Ocean City, Maryland, if you still look at face value of what you can buy for your dollar and how close you can be to the beach or the views that you can obtain,
nothing compares.
Nothing really does. Up the entire East Coast, up and down.
Go do your due diligence in every beach town,
right?
And I think hands down we come out as the affordability, and in this area, I go to other beach towns. I enjoy it here. There's always something going on,
right?
And yes, it's going up in price, but your value is going up as well. So it's kind of a catch-22,
Yeah, value of what the town provides. That's another podcast.
Yeah.
It's what does the town provide, right? There's just so much you can do. So many different feels you can have on a beach, depending on what part of town you're in, right? Or go out to Assateague.
Right.
It's a lot there. Anyway, we like Ocean City. We like Delaware beaches. That's obvious. We like real estate.
Right.
So, all right. Well, I think that's a good spot to kind of wrap things up. I appreciate, like I said, you sharing your perspective. Great hearing your journey. I'm super proud of your success that you've had here, and it's like you've kept your head down. You haven't let the market affect you. You're just doing your thing. You're doing your systems, and obviously that's paid off to have a great 2023 and on track to probably have a record-breaking 24. So
I'm hoping so. I appreciate the opportunities that you guys have given me over the years. It's definitely part of the success. That's something I didn't touch on is the opportunities.
It's another podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get you back here.
But we build, you build that arsenal of people and then you keep in touch with them.
Right.
It's not rocket science.
I'm going to butcher this.
You also have to provide that, you can't just call them and talk about golf.
Right.
Well,
yeah. You got to be the knowledge broker. Right?
Absolutely.
Anybody can talk about golf, but can they really, when a time comes that they want to do something with real estate, can they trust you? They know you.
How's the market question? And I want to answer that to the extent of I'm going to flood you. How's the market? I'm going to flood you with knowledge to the point where you're like, all right, I got it.
Yeah. Well, it becomes an obsession, I think, for some of us, and it's what we think about all the time. And where are things going, and how can we guide?
Absolutely.
So thanks again, Phil. I really appreciate it. If you guys like this, please share it with a friend, subscribe. If there's any topics you want us to cover in the future, let us know. We'd be happy to go down that road, whether it's just life at the beaches or taxes we went over, but things affecting the town, what our season looks like, what events are coming. We'd be happy to touch on that. So once again, thank you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week with another edition of the Running Real Estate Podcast.